So you started a career in social and digital marketing before pivoting to data analytics. What led to that shift, and what was the transition like?
I think that I am just a naturally curious person. So when I pursued marketing, it had a lot to do with that curiosity that I had. I wanted to know why consumers made certain decisions. And so in my marketing roles, I have always been drawn to the data. I wanted to know why certain campaigns performed well and why others didn't. And so I found myself falling in love with like the analytical side of marketing, which is funny because I am a creative at heart, I feel like, and I've always told myself, even when I was in college, I was like, I don't want to do anything with numbers. I want to go into like the creative
Just
aspect
one math class, please.
And so now like I'm in data analytics, but I think that curiosity that I had when it comes to just learning about the performance of marketing campaigns really helped me to hone in on that skill set, which helped me to naturally transition over to data analytics. But I will say, and I'll admit, like I didn't know data analytics was a thing until I landed my first data analytics role, because the marketing agencies or companies I was with before, they didn't have data analytics teams per se. I never worked with like a data engineer or a data analyst, not even a business insights person. So when I got this role, I know that it was a lot of strategy, it was a lot of analyzing data, but I didn't really know like that I had stumbled upon this shift. So I think it happened very naturally for me.
Did you know? So I was reading this article. It's from the World Economic Forum, and it had an outline of the jobs that are on the rise in the next 5 years. And data analyst was one of those. And then it had like the ones that are on the decline, and they were like postmen or bookkeepers. So in the industry that you're in, it seems like it's in an industry or a field that is gonna continue to grow. So I don't know. I feel like that's a really good place to be.
Yeah.
So have you taken any classes to basically, you had your experience that you went into with this job, but have you had to develop even further, and how has that been?
Yeah, I think what got me in the door was having the experience of analyzing data and data interpretation. So being able to look at engagement rates, CVR, CTR, looking at all that, and being able to know how they tied in with one another. But there were definitely some skills that I didn't have that I've had to develop. So I've always said that I'm pretty good at Excel. There's like so many different levels to Excel, and I mean I've been using Excel since maybe like elementary. Do we start using Excel elementary, middle school or something? High school.
We have like computer classes,
and so I'm always like, I've been using Excel for years and years. But when you're in data analytics, you use it to a whole different capacity, and so that I've had to really develop, and it's just a lot of technical skills, to be honest. So there's like SQL, which is the coding that we use. So that has been something that I've also just been trying to learn. But yeah, it's a lot of the technical skills side of it.
When I was at Capital One, we used Tableau, but I never had to build any of like the actual dashboards. So I'm assuming that that's what a data analyst would do. Maybe they would build those dashboards. So then for us, like the communication side of the house, we would use it to then say, okay, it looks like these are the, I guess it depends what kind of data is going in there, but like we would make decisions based off what we were seeing in those dashboards. So have you had to
build dashboards?
Yes.
Actually, you know what? I find that really fun. So I started off using Tableau, and then we recently transitioned over to Domo. Tableau is they're both very powerful tools, but Tableau is a little bit harder to learn. There's like a steeper learning curve. But Domo is a little bit more like plug and play, I guess you could say. There's still obviously technique to it. But I've had to learn to do both. And it's really fun, actually. I really enjoy building the dashboards.
Do you feel like you could do like a master class on?
No.
Okay.
No.
Don't ask me to do
No.
that.
Tableau is so funny though, because it is just harder to learn. There's you can do so much, and you can customize dashboards really well with Tableau. But there's just like little techniques that you're just like, I just wanted to do a pie chart. Why is there like 20 steps to that,
Oh my gosh, that's how I feel. I mean, I don't really love Excel. I know how to, now that it has kind of the AI integrations, I do kind of say like, this is what I'm wanting. What is the formula that I need to plug in? How are you integrating AI into data analysts?
Well, so
Or data analysts?
that's kind of like where we're shifting to in the company that I'm with right now, is trying to figure out how AI plays in with data analytics and how we can create like meaningful insights with AI. So that's something that we're working through. That's also one of my goals for this year, is to just try and get ahead of the game with AI, because there is definitely a future with AI and data.
So looking back, is there anything you would have done differently during that transition? I know you said it came naturally, but if you were to say, oh, I wish I would have done this, or like learned this in college, or done, pay more attention here.
Yeah, like I said, the transition was a lot natural, so it's hard to say like what would I have done differently. I think that the career path that I took was really helpful, and it helped me, like, since I worked with all channels, it helped me develop into like a well-rounded marketing professional. But I think looking back, if I had been more intentional about like, hey, I want to transition over to data analytics, I definitely would have tried to hone in on my technical skills, like the Excel that I was talking about. There's like, I went into this like not knowing how to do like VLOOKUP, and like VLOOKUPs are, used all the time in data analytics. So I think that is something that I wish that I would have made more time for and be more intentional about. SQL would be one of them, because that one you work with, as a data analyst and analytics in general, you're working with endless amounts of data. So for you to pull it efficiently and quickly, SQL is something that's used almost on a daily basis. So I think those two things, AI also, but also like AI didn't exist like. Well, I guess it was probably starting up.
Yeah, it isn't what it is now.
Yeah, no, sure. So yeah, I think those.
You and your sister co-own the Risa booth, right? And you also previously owned like a social media marketing agency. So what are the biggest lessons you've learned from running your own businesses?
And that it's hard. One of the things that I learned is that, one, you really need to love what you're doing, and you have to be truly passionate about it. And then two is that you need to learn to let go of the reins a little bit. You need to delegate, especially when you're like an entrepreneur. You wear a million different hats. You are the salesperson, you're the marketer, you are probably like, in social media, the marketing agency that I was doing everything, and it grew so quickly that I ended up hiring people to help me, which was like a blessing, but also at the same time, I'm such a type A perfectionist, and so I wanted to touch everything, I wanted to look at everything, I wanted to prove everything, and then I'd be like up at 3 a.m, still like working on copy and changing creative, and so that just wasn't healthy for me. So I think the biggest lesson learned is that you just need to delegate, accept the fact that you can't do it all yourself, and then trust the people that you hire, because you're hiring them because they're professionals and they know what they're doing. So
how do you balance your full-time role, right, with running
my side business? I think the key is to, one, be organized, to make sure that you have systems in place too. I think that helps a lot. With the photo booth business, the Risa booth, we are just very organized in the fact that we have, especially like with our hard drive, that we have a lot of photos from like all the events that we have, and I have everything very organized. We have templates organized, and I think also creating those systems, because you want to automate as much as you can. You don't want to handwrite every single email or respond to every single inquiry with like from scratch. So now we have templates and all of that to make it easier, because balancing both of them can be really hard. But I think the good thing for us is that we're in the event industry, and a lot of that takes place on weekends. So that's nice, but it does mean that like I'll be editing photos maybe during the week. So once I know that I'm like my 9 to 5 is, I'm done for the day, then I'll go and edit photos. So I think just trying to be organized and having systems in place.
And do you ever feel like it, like, has there been moments where it's like, because you're married and you also are plugged into your church and you have friends and family and you like to hang out with them. So has it ever been where you're like, you have to decide where to split your time? And how do you make that decision? Is it, well, I have a client, so I need to do that first? Or?
Yeah, and so basically what I do is my sister and I, we run it together. So we both have a calendar where if like it's maybe our anniversary, my wedding anniversary, then I block that off the calendar. So I think we're really good at setting boundaries. Also, we have a 9 to 5, we both do, so we don't really book anything during the week unless maybe it's like a super fun event. And thankfully, both of our jobs are flexible in that aspect, so we could ask for the time off. But I think we just do a really good job of setting boundaries because you also don't want to get burnt out, you know? So, yeah, setting those boundaries is good.
So, what is the best part about running a business with your sister? And what is the most unexpected challenge?
The best part about running a business with my sister is we've just gotten really close. You know, so I think that we're in such like a fun industry. We go to a lot of like birthday parties, corporate parties, weddings, and it's just like a fun environment. So, and these are long days that we're working, you know, so we're like, sometimes we start all of DFW, so we sometimes drive all the way to Fort Worth.
All the way to Justin?
Yeah, all the way to Justin, like an hour and a half away, and so the whole drive there, we're like talking, so we've gotten really close. But I think an unexpected thing that I kind of loved is that I get to see my sister shine and thrive in her element because she's really good at the technical side of the photo booth, so she knows like how to work the photo booth. Like me, I'm just like, okay, I know how to turn it on, turn it off. And so she's really good at all of that, like thriving under pressure too, because you know, like technology is technology. Sometimes it'll fail, like the flash won't go off on the camera or something, and internally I'm freaking out. But seeing her like calm and like she's just like, I got it. I'm just like, oh, I love seeing that. You know, and she's confident in what she's doing, so I like seeing that.
Walk us through a typical day in your life. How does it change when you're going into the office versus working remotely?
My days look a little different, but the entire week looks the same, if that makes any sense. But in the morning, basically, I start off with checking my emails. Sometimes I've gotten like emails after I close off for the day the night before. So I check my emails and then I adjust my to-do list to kind of get an idea of what I'm going to work on that day, highlight my priorities. Sometimes it feels like there's like 10 priorities. I'm like, okay, there's like 20 things on here, 10 of them are priorities. So I pick out like my top 3, top 5 priorities and then time block my calendar as best as I can. I know that time blocking helps me just mentally prepare for what I'm about to work on, but also a lot of times I have to pivot. Sometimes I'm like, I'll be working on this report all day, and then it's like, I didn't get a chance to touch it. But every day looks different, and the fact that it depends on what the ask is for that day, but it could be a lot of QAs. Like I'm doing a lot of QAing, so just making sure that the data is clean, the dashboard's working, nothing's broken, and that would be a huge part of my job. Also working on reports, so there's sometimes like for certain clients I'm working on weekly reports, either monthly reports. Sometimes I'm just pulling ad hoc data for like our internal team. I also have like meetings with our internal team, whether that's like the media planners or buyers. Sometimes they have like specific asks, so doing things with them or hopping on calls with them. It's also like hopping on calls with clients too. So that's a thing too. What else? Yeah, I think that's like mostly what my days consist of.
How hard is it to be on those client calls and they're asking questions and like, let's say do you mostly always have an answer to if they're asking you a question directly?
It depends on the ask, and it depends like where in my career I would be answering that from. I think because I'm still fairly new to data analytics, yes, I still have questions, and I don't have all the answers, but I think that where I work at right now, I know that I started taking on a client more in the fact that I'm like being more client facing with this client. And so my boss, he was like, he made me feel a lot more confident because he sat with me and he was trying to prep me for this first client call that I was going to have just this past week actually. And he was like, and don't worry, like if you don't know the answer, just let him know, hey, I'm going to get with him and we're going to do some digging and then we'll get back to you. So I think clients understand too, like you don't have all the answers in your back pocket. Yeah. There's simply no way for you to know everything, especially when it comes to data. Like there's so much data out there.
Do you have any advice for people considering going into business with close friends or family?
Don't do it. No, actually, I think that I haven't had any issues actually being in business with my sister. Because we set expectations very early on, and I think that's so important, is before you even launch this business, talk about boundaries, like what are boundaries going to look like, talk about roles and responsibilities, talking about, I think something that's really important that I don't really hear people talk about is talking about each other's strengths and weaknesses early on, because, for example, when we launched this business, I knew that she wasn't going to be the professional in marketing. Like she's not the best at like wording emails and all of that and building the relationships. She's like an introvert. I mean, which I am too, but I can make it. And so she knew going in that I'm not a technical person. So I think we're laying those out there and then respecting each other's strengths and weaknesses. So I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice. And then also just knowing that you're going to business with each other, like you need to prioritize your relationship, like your business isn't more important than a lifelong friendship or relationship that you have with that person.
Would you go into business with a friend?
I would if we set those expectations early on, for sure. And if because look, you're never going to be on the same page in every single aspect. There's still areas where my sister and I don't agree, but I think we mutually come together and respect that decision. So for example, if maybe there's like a sale that I want to do and she doesn't really want to do it, then we kind of like negotiate that or come to terms with like what we should do or the next plan of action. Or if there's like just an event that we're like, okay, hey, they're asking to sponsor. We don't really do sponsors. Do we do it or do we not? And so we kind of just come together and we don't always agree, but we respect. So I'm like, okay, I don't really want to do it, but if you want to do it, I'll do it. You know?
Yeah. You're compromising.
Yeah, compromising.
What keeps you motivated, especially when things get tough at work? What keeps you motivated in life?
I think at work, what keeps me motivated is seeing how far I've come, especially because the transition to data analytics is still fairly new for me. I think I've only been in data analytics for like 3 years. And so I think taking a step back and being like, I've come really far. You know, I've learned Tableau, I've learned Doma, I've built like so many dashboards. So I think that's one way, is just to celebrate how far I've come. And then another thing would be to try and see like what you can learn from the challenge that you're in. And I know that right now I'm in the midst of like busy season. There's a lot of new stuff that I'm working on right now, and it can feel really overwhelming. I think the past couple of weeks has been really overwhelming with just how much work I have going on and new projects that I'm working on. But then I'm like, oh, it's kind of exciting. I'm learning this new formula in Excel. Or hey, like I learned how to do this in Doma. Oh, I learned how to do this. So I think that keeps me going too. Gives me just the motivation to keep.
What personal or professional goals are you currently working toward?
I think I've kind of touched on them already, but I want to, and I've been working on taking some courses for Excel, specifically for data analytics, because I want to get more proficient in that. I use Excel all the time, and so I just want to, like my boss, he's so good at Excel, and I'm just like,
it's so easy for him.
It's so easy for him. And so I'm like, I want. So SQL is something that I really want to develop because I do work with a lot of big data sets, and so I just want to be more efficient there. And then AI.
You have a full learning year.
Yeah, but I think that in previous years I've been like, oh, this is what I want to learn, but I'm never intentional. And so now I do have like quarterly goals where I'm like, okay, this quarter specifically, I'm dedicating to Excel.
Okay.
And then next quarter, I'm dedicating to SQL. And then the next quarter, like, I'll dedicate to AI, because I think when you just say, like, oh, I want to learn this, and you're not putting it into action, that's kind of hard to learn. So I'm, like, very intentional.
I don't know if you're like this. I know I'm like this. I want to learn so many different things. But if you don't, like, actually give yourself, like, this is the amount of time, or this is my timeline for learning this, you just don't, it's just an idea, and you don't actually do it. So.
Yeah. No, and I have it on my to-do list for Friday.
Okay.
I'm like, every Friday, I'm dedicating 2 hours to do this. Yeah.
Did you have to get your boss to sign off on that, or is it just part of, like, the company culture?
Yeah, it's part of the company culture. They have LinkedIn Learning for us, and so that's what I use. But you know what? There's so many free resources, too. So, like, even if you don't, your company doesn't pay for, like, LinkedIn Learning, like, YouTube is free, you know?
YouTube. Harvard has their classes for free. You can watch them online.
Oh, really?
And now, promo. Harvard better sponsor this. If your family makes less than $200K and you get accepted to Harvard, you don't have to pay for tuition.
No
That's
way.
free. Yeah. Obviously, you have to get into Harvard, but if you do, what's been the most surprising or eye-opening experience you've had in the corporate world?
I think that the biggest eye-opening experience that I've had in the corporate world is how common imposter syndrome is. Man, that's a struggle, and I know that's a struggle for me. But I realized that so many people at all levels, whether they've been in the industry for a long time or they're new to it, they struggle with imposter syndrome, with like disqualifying themselves, with thinking like, I'm not good enough, I don't know enough, like I don't have all the answers, why am I here? I don't belong in this room or at this table or in this meeting. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. It's just not talked about a lot. And for me, even when I was in marketing for years, I still struggled with that. And I struggle with it even more so now that I'm like new to data analytics. But I think the fact that I know now that so many people struggle with it, even being in the industry for a long time, I think it gives me confidence at the same time. And it helps me like go into a meeting being confident and knowing and accepting the fact that you're not going to know all the answers. And it is okay to say, hey, I don't know the answer right now, but I can find out for you. And there's a sense of like peace that comes from accepting that. But I think, a lot of people disqualify. It can be so easy to like go down the rabbit hole of like thinking I'm not good enough, but you have to quiet that negative thought.
Yeah. I know, I struggle with this sometimes, especially when looking at like new roles, right? Yes, this is the amount of years of experience I have in like social media or communications, internal comms, whatever it is, but still feeling like, how do I get to the next level? Because those entry level positions, of course, like I know how to do that. But going from like entry level to then in your mid careers, I find it really hard to break out of being the doer and being strategic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I was having a conversation with someone about it, and she kind of just walked me through. She's like, you're doing the things, but you need to be able to explain how you got from point A to point B and how you're bringing value in versus, yes, I ran this campaign. It's like, well, what did that campaign, how did it align with a company goal or a KPI? And so I find that so hard, and I find myself to have the most imposter syndrome whenever I have to do that connection. Yeah, I don't love that.
But I think that's also just looking at those transferable skills and values that you currently do in your role. You just have to think about it in a new way and how it applies to that role that you want to apply for.
I know, and sometimes I feel like I'm in a rut because of that. Because I'm like, well, I'm a contractor right now.
But you're not just a contractor. Like, you have so much experience, so much value. I think you're probably just underestimating yourself.
You see, this is why we all have imposter syndrome. Exactly. Okay, for someone thinking about pivoting in their career, it doesn't just have to be specifically to being a data analyst. What advice would you give them?
I would say don't disqualify yourself before you even try. Apply for the job, even if your experience doesn't match the job description 100%. And I think a lot of times, especially as like women, we are looking at a job description and we're like, oh, I don't have 100% of that experience, so I'm not going to apply. But I would say to apply anyways, and to prep for the interview, you know, kind of like what we talked about, is taking a step back and looking at what value you currently add to the company and to the role that you're in. Take a look at your skill sets and just the experience that you have, and apply it to a new context. And I think that's what I would recommend, is just trying to think, how can I use these same skills in this new role? So for me, when I was transitioning from marketing to data analytics, I feel like it was a very smooth transition because I did have like that storytelling aspect of experience. I had the analyzing of the data. I was looking at marketing campaigns, seeing how they were performing, the critical thinking, the collaborating with other teams. So a lot of what I do now, I did as a marketer, whether that was like social media or digital marketing. I do it now, but in a different capacity. So yeah, I would say, yeah, don't underestimate your value or your skill set, because we all have, like, whether you're a cashier or you're, you know, a social media manager and you want to transition to anything, you have like value and experience that's unique to you, and that role that can be transferred or transitioned over to another role.
Because I wrote this blog post in like 2018 or 2017, like literally like right after college. And it was like tips on what to do if you have like zero connections in the industry, right? And it was so funny because I was reading through it, and like the first tip was like make a LinkedIn account, because like it wasn't something that was typical for like college students then. And so obviously a lot of those tips are like not applicable anymore, because most students know, like I've seen like a lot of people who are still in college like talking about their internships on LinkedIn and like posting consistently and things like that. And so I'm like, okay, the tips that I had, let's say 8 or 9 years ago, would it actually help people now? Have you had that experience where you've seen things that you're like, okay, this worked for me when I was first breaking into, you know, corporate, or, you know, your first full-time job after college, and that necessarily wouldn't work anymore, and what would work now?
No, but on the other end of the I was thinking about this today, is the fact that I do know what still works, and that's networking. Yeah. Like, networking is so important, especially if you don't. So I was the first one to kind of go into corporate. Well, my sister, I think she graduated. She had her degree in marketing maybe like 2 years before me, but she was the first one like in her family to get a college degree. So it was still fairly new to me. I didn't have any connections. And so, but what I did have was a strong work ethic, and I had goals. So for me, I knew the importance of networking because I didn't have a network. You know, and that's how I got my first internship. Well, not my first internship, my first job out of college. That's how I got it. Because it was my junior year at UTD, and it was my social media marketing class. And this marketing agency came in, and they were giving us their spiel about like, oh, this is what it looks like to work in marketing and social media, the kind of different channels that we have, and I remember being like, oh wow, like I want to work there. It looks fun, and I'm like an introvert, so I was like, I want to go and like make this connection, but I also am dying inside because I don't want to say hi.
Which is so funny because we met through like it wasn't networking technically. It was networking. And so I remember after class, I just like got the courage to go up to her and I introduced myself and I said, hey, I'm a junior right now, but I would really love to work there. And so she was like, yeah, she was so sweet. She gave me her number and her email, and she was like, when you're a senior, reach out to me and then we can chat. And so my senior year, I think I was about to graduate, and I emailed her, and she was like, come to the office, and I'll give you a tour and bring your resume. And so then I went
took my resume, she gave me a tour. She was so nice, and she sat me down, she gave me feedback on my resume, and then she even emailed me back, like, the resume with, you know, all of the feedback.
Yeah.
And she emailed me maybe like a week or two later, and she was like, hey, we have some positions open. They're like contractor roles, but so that's how I got my first job.
That's really cool, though. And I think it is important, like the power of networking.
Yeah.
Because, so I think I told you this, I'm trying to like cold email people.
No.
I didn't tell you this?
No.
Okay, so I'm trying, so right now, even though if I'm like not actively looking, or if I am actively looking, or whether whether a company has an opening or not, it's like looking at the people who work there, and then just saying like a discovery call, basically. Would you be willing to talk to me? And you just understand a little bit more of the culture, like what they did to get there, and so you can understand that, and then hopefully, if it does seem like it's a good like cultural fit, if there is ever a position that opens up, and your experience is relevant, or you want to pursue a career in that field, then you have an in. You have people that you've made a connection with.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing that I'm struggling with is like, how do you make this authentic? In the sense of like, yes, I'm interested because of where you work. I want to learn more about it, but then I'm also interested. You're not going to just email anyone. I would hope that you would go on LinkedIn and look at their experience and say like, oh, their path has been really interesting too. So it's like you have like an interest in them as a person as well, and not just the company. So that's what I'm attempting to do. It's like
that's
basically like making a list of companies that I feel like, okay, I really like their values and their mission. Let's see who I can find there that would be willing to talk to me, and that they have really interesting career paths too, that I can ask them more about that.
Yeah.
We'll see how that works.
Yeah, no, I think if you can make that initial message very personal, I think it would work. Because I know that I mean, you probably get these too on LinkedIn, where it's like, hey, I find, what you do interesting. Can we chat?
And I always put decline.
yeah. But it's a lot of times it doesn't seem genuine, So I think if the message, which I have done several times, it's like when that message feels genuine, then I'm like, you know what? Yeah, we'll jump on a call with you for 10, 15 minutes and chat. So especially they're usually like seniors in college. If they're at UTD, like guaranteed, I'm like almost gonna talk to them.